Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Center. Is that one going to keep doing that? Okay. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Center Live Saturday Overnight Edition. My name is William. I am here to shepherd you from what is Saturday, March 4th into Sunday. Wow, dude, I don't even know where I'm at in the week. Sunday, March 5th. Tomorrow is AEW's Revolution, so I don't have football, but I have a major wrestling pay-per-view full of matches I think I'm going to like. I'm trying to get warmed up to WrestleMania. Right now, there's one match on WrestleMania, other than the women's match that I actually care about, and obviously that's the Cody Rhodes match. They have, as boring as the Bloodline saga was over the last 3 years or so, it's finally wrapping up in the best way that it possibly could. The promos that Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns are doing these last 30 days have been excellent. So hopefully there's more than two matches, though, in actual WrestleMania. The last 7 or 8 WrestleManias, the cards have been bloated, and there's been 2 or 3 really, really great matches, but the rest of it, you could literally just, speed through if you DVR'd it. And then the last few years, since COVID, they've done 2 days. There's just not enough content on WWE to have 2 days worth of great matches. So tomorrow is AEW Revolution. I'll be watching that. And then the next one, the major one, is April 1st, the weekend of April 1st for WrestleMania. All right, some of the topics I'm going to talk about today are going to be, just as a thumbnail, we're going to go into some more Kang. I promised you last week that I wouldn't inundate you with a whole bunch of Kang, because Kang and all of his variants can be very confusing. So this week we're going to go with the Scarlet Centurion and Iron Lad, both variations of Kang. Iron Lad being the younger one that you see in Young Avengers, and then the Scarlet Centurion, who primarily exists in an alternate universe where the Squadron Supreme are the primary antagonist or primary superhero team instead of the Avengers. So we'll read up on those, and then we'll talk about Antman and Wasp dismal box office for a $200 million budget. They're at $374 million. I don't know how much they marketed Antman and Wasp. I don't know how much they spent there. I know we weren't a part of that marketing campaign. We rarely are when it comes to some of the newer Disney movies. They figure they don't need to do as much marketing as some of the other companies do. But right now, 374 million worldwide is what Ant-Man and the Wasp is at. And I don't know if they're going to be too happy with that. It's a lot to spend on the money. 200 million on an Ant-Man movie. I got to see it. It's a volume movie. It's not a bad movie. 600 million. Oof. It's not a bad movie, but it's not a very good one either. The primary thing for me that I got out of it was Jonathan Majors is excellent as Kang, but he's just not surrounded by much of a movie, unfortunately. And when you also look at the end credits, I won't spoil it for people, but it's a lot of Kang. It's a lot of Kang. So that's why I am trying to get people who are not as up on Kang as up as possible, because even if this movie kind of fizzled, it still introduced Kang, that version of Nathaniel Richards. And going forward with the Kang Dynasty, if you saw the movie, then you saw the ending, and the 2 post-credit scenes are going to lean heavily into what's coming next. So I figured while we had some time, each week I'm going to try to go into how you doing, Alabaster? Alabaster, trying to go into at least a couple of versions, and then after we cover each of the actual Kangs themselves, variants themselves, and we'll start going into some of the major storylines that involve those Kangs, because it's not just Kang the character, it's the storylines that make Kang the character as an intriguing character. And then we'll also go into Shazam's box offices are not projected to be very good. And I have my reasons why that's going to be the case. I hope they're wrong. I'm going to do everything I can to promote this film. We'll be doing our special screening on March 15th, a couple of days before the movie comes out. Hopefully we'll get some promotional items, t-shirts, all that stuff to give away. But as I said before, and a lot of knuckleheads like to try to blame, when Black Adam came around, they wanted to blame The Rock. No, you blame whoever greenlit Black Adam. All right, and if you're worried about dismal box offices when it comes to Shazam, you blame whoever greenlit Shazam and then turned around and greenlit a sequel. Where do you? I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if it's going to have a place at all. I'm going to assume it probably will because it's not connected to anything. So it's probably going to not initially be connected, but it'll probably be connected as his universe unfolds. But yeah, when it comes to Shazam, it's going to make Shazam money, which probably isn't very much, unfortunately. It could have done better. You could have had a better outcome with both Black Adam and Shazam as they are, but you release these movies without a Superman or Batman plan, so you're going to have an issue. Yeah, 425 million is going to be pretty good. They only spent 125 on this one, so they're going to go profit, I guess, but it's just not going to be, a huge profit. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's kind of been not swept under the rug, but it's not in the front of mind when it comes to the promotional efforts for it. It's not an event movie. When you think of the reason why I think the Flash is going to do well, and the reason why I think the Flash is getting their faith and hype and screened at CinemaCon 2 months before it gets released to us, is the fact that it's an event level movie. It doesn't have Superman in it as far as we know, but it has that big familiar red S in it. It doesn't have keep that one up there if you could still for a while. It doesn't have it has Batman. I mean, it has that, it has the logo on it. It may have other cameos in it, but it has the big signature IPs or things really close to them, and it has the Flash himself. It's a big event. It's a big event IP, which is something that the previous regime just didn't do. You couldn't, the general audience just couldn't get behind these obscure IPs that nobody understood. So yeah, we got some issues here. DC should just do 3 to 5 movie volumes and forget a 10-year plan. It's too late in the game. Well, like I've always said, there is no 10-year plan. He may have a 10-year plan. He may present a 10-year plan, and David Zaslav might look at it and say, this is a great 10-year plan. But like I always say, his initial contract is 4 years. So it's a 4-year plan with a team option. And it may not be up to either Zaslav, Gunn, or Safran whether they continue or not. If these movies do great, then they'll buy themselves a lot of time and a lot of goodwill. But if there's stupid-ass expectations, saying that Superman Legacy needs to pull $1 billion, you're already out of the gate in the failure wagon, because you're going to crush that movie no matter how good it is under the weight of stupid ass expectations. All right, let's go ahead and bring in Truck back to page. What's going on, dude?
Not much, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but it does sound like there's a truck behind you now. It goes with all you're missing is a hat.
Oh man.
But yeah, that's where we're at as far as the main topics goes. We already talked Star Trek. I think we went do the Star Trek thing, Star Trek Discovery thing. I'm still hearing the nonsense. The whole woke thing. Once again, guys, if you're watching this show and you apply woke to Star Trek, all I see and hear from you is just picture one of those Neanderthals. That's all I see and hear when I hear that word, especially when
Yeah.
you apply it to something like Star Trek. So we can go into that deep. Okay, question. Hold on. Go ahead.
And that's the thing, like you were saying last night, because I watched the show from last night since I missed it. Uh, you know, Discovery's run its course. It's had its time. It's fine. 5 years as a streaming show is good.
It's amazing. Like I said, I can't get Mindhunter season 3, and it's some of the best stuff Netflix has ever put out. And that show was great because of money and because of viewership. That's where it is, it's streaming.
But I will say this, and this is something that Sean Ferrick said over at Trek Culture. The times of the Marvel $1 billion movie has really screwed with the way people think about how things should look and how they should be and everything else. Everybody seems to think today that everything has to hit the Billy mark, and it doesn't. You don't have to make $1 billion to make a good movie. I mean,
No.
Case in point, Pooh, Blood, and Honey. Case in point.
It's closing $4 million. Pooh, Blood, and Honey is closing in on $4 million of a whole $100,000 budget. I'm still trying to get this.
Skinamarink, which came out a couple of months before that, on a $15,000 budget, is nearing $8 million box office now.
Yeah.
I mean, indie horror films are great, and proof positive that you don't have to spend shit tons of money and have shit tons of money made back to make a great movie.
Yeah.
I think Skinamarink was a great movie in my opinion, but
question: have you heard these rumors that Batman: Brave and the Bold are using parts of Affleck's script, and do you believe it's all just speculation? Yes, I do believe it's all speculation, but if it were true, that'd be kind of cool. If you can get Ben Affleck involved in any of this universe at any level, you automatically increase your odds from the 40% that I gave him to go a little bit higher than that, as far as, because you're bringing on an Academy Award-winning director. If it is Batman, even though I know that a lot of pundits say it won't be because he wants to write it, he wants to use the script that he had, but I don't see Ben Affleck being that rigid to the point where if it's something he wants to do, he won't make that adjustment. But if you're bringing a guy who loves the IP, who is a top flight director, movie maker, Academy Award winner, you can't go wrong. You can only go right with that. So what do you think about that, Lee?
Also remember, take everything you hear with a grain of salt until you actually hear it from WB and Ben Affleck himself. I mean, I'd like to think that he might be the director on this movie, but we don't know yet. I mean, we simply do not know.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff.
This movie's what, 2 years away?
Yeah, it's like a million years away. As far as
it's forever from now. It's like 2026, 2025, 2026.
Yeah.
I mean, all we have is speculation right now. Don't take anything anybody tells you seriously. There are no insiders on this shit right now. It's all just rumor and fluff right now until you hear it from WB or Ben Affleck.
Yeah, unless James Gunn comes out and says, "Hey, this is the guy we're going."
If Jimmy says it, if James Gunn says it, if Peter Safran says it, if Zaslav says it, or if Ben Affleck comes out and says it, then maybe. But even that can change. Again, we've got 2 years till this movie comes out.
Yeah, that's a long time. What's the next one, Stella? All right, question: why do you think fans care so much how long the streaming service show lasts? Is because they're still getting? Yes, exactly what I explained yesterday. This is
still
all
going off network television.
Yeah, this is all new territory for a lot of people, especially Star Trek fans. If it didn't do 7 years, it was considered a failure. The only two shows that did do 7 years was Enterprise and the original Star Trek itself. That show was canceled. Now, when it came to Enterprise, that had a lot to do with you had old Trek fan was at his or her most powerful, and they basically strangled the life out of the fun out of Star Trek and made it so that no studio or TV network wanted to deal with it again, and that's why you went 12 years without, Star Trek. But you also had a weak network in UPN that ended up getting absorbed into whatever the CW was. So you didn't have that network did not have the power to stand up to fans and say, "This is the show we're doing. Get over it." We have fans that like. They didn't have that. They were so weak that and it was a flagship show that gatekeeping Trek fans, and I'll just call them what they were, really changed the course of what that show could have been, and it ended up being something that wasn't very good towards the end, and they ended up getting canceled. But for the most part, the network model that goes with Star Trek was 7 years, simply because, we're talking about 20 and 30 years ago in some of these cases. Voyager was the last 7-year show you had. And you got to realize Voyager started in 1995 and lasted until 2001. All right, Deep Space Nine was 92 to 99, and Star Trek: The Next Generation was 87 to 94. Now, that time period, the way the money that it cost to make these shows back in those eras was a quarter of what it costs now. So not only do you have that, but you also have the revenue model of having so many episodes and then going in to be able to sell your show into syndication even while you're making new episodes. So you were making enough money to justify going forward. And like I said, it's just not the case with streaming. Streaming is solely subscriptions, and you're losing that revenue, capture to be able to justify it. And you're also dealing with a much more higher quality production value in these Star Trek shows that have been on Paramount Plus than there ever was on any of the previous Star Trek shows. Despite what you might think of the content of any of those shows, you cannot deny the fact that these shows are done and they look great. Picard looks great. Discovery looks great. Strange New Worlds looks great. They're using top-notch special effects. They're using top-notch actors. Also, each time you have something in streaming that goes on more and more, it gets more expensive because a lot of those times your actors, even if they were nobodies on day one, episode one, by the time they've gotten to the point where you're reaching your third, fourth, or fifth year, they want raises because they're stars now. They're on other projects. They're making money there. Your special effects people who've been with you a long time, everybody wants a raise that they deserve. So if you cannot increase your revenue intake like you can on a network TV show, you can't justify that expense, especially when you're Netflix and you don't, or Netflix, or when you're Paramount and you're going through a merger to consolidate a lot of things. Paramount has CBS, but once again, would you be able to get the ad revenue that goes on to that would come from it being on CBS? That's in network TV. Like I said, you'd have, in order for it to be on network TV, you're talking minimum 26 episodes. So if you can barely afford to produce a show that's 10 to 13 episodes, just imagine what the cost would be to put it on network TV. Even with the ad revenue generated, it may not be enough. If you look at it right now, there's not a lot of high-end things on network TV right now. Even the Sci-Fi Channel cut back on a lot of their stuff. So it's just the nature of the beast. 5 years that Discovery got is literally the equivalent to 8 or 9 of network TV when you look at all the costs and everything going on. So that's why, Anthony. That's why I think. Go ahead, Dave. I'll give you a chance to answer that.
I just simply think what you said. I mean, like, it's the network stuff. It's people still think that things should work the same way. Also, as certain people always say, we have a bunch of armchair CEOs talking about how they know how it should go, and it's not. It's a whole new experience. The streaming thing over the last few years has changed so much because of the pandemic and everything else, where we had to step up to streaming. It's just different, and to sit here and say how it works, you don't. None of us do. It's still not been, the business model of streaming has still not been solidified, and probably won't be in this form for another couple of years. I mean, I'm still learning how it works.
Well, and the thing about it is, go ahead.
Honestly, it's working a lot like the BBC used to work when they would put out shows on the BBC. Sometimes you wouldn't get a new season for a couple of years, or you wouldn't get a new season for like 6 to 18 months after the last season you just watched. And growing up in England, it never bothered me that we had to wait for shows, because we didn't think about it. But like here, we're greedy as purveyors of media. We are greedy because we've been fed on that network TV teat for 70 years. We had a way we thought TV was supposed to work. You wait 9 to 12 months for the next season of the show, and that's not how it works anymore. It
used to be 3.5 months. Now you used to end your show in May and you started back up in September, and it wasn't that bad. Now you get shows, and like I said, a lot of it is the cost. Another thing you got to realize when it comes to a streaming service, even one that's connected to a network like Paramount is in the Viacom, is they're still trying to figure out just how many subscribers they're going to get. because you can only have so many subscribers. There's only so many people in the world, and once you plateau, it's going to be a little bit longer before you can increase with growth. So what they're doing is they're scaling back what they set out to spend to coincide with that level of growth that they have. Because, like I said, not everybody can get a streaming services, and some people go from one streaming service to another. You have to have, what they're trying to do is they're trying to add enough attraction to keep you going. But if they were going to cut one, if they were going to put the wrap on one, it's fair enough that it's the one that has had the longest of the reign. The card's done. You're not going to cut Strange New Worlds. You just got it. I mean, it's in second season. And when it comes to Strange New Worlds, as much as I love that show, you're probably getting 3 to 4 seasons of that show. I would be highly shocked and surprised if Strange New Worlds lasted more than 4 seasons, primarily because the story will take it into places that have already been, or have already been tackled. And B, all those actors, you got a top tier actor in Rebecca Romijn, and you got Antman on there. These are big money people, and as they get more exposure, some of those younger guys, they're going to get picked up by other shows, other movies, and then you're going to have to match with those other people that are eyeing them are. So it's each year, by the time we reach year 4 of Stranger Worlds, it's going to be a much more expensive show than it is now, and then you're going to have to ask yourself, can I justify this? Now, if just to give you an idea of how that works, who's not watching Strange New Worlds? There's a bazillion people that watch Strange New Worlds. How many seasons did they get? All right, because guess what? All those stars, all those people from David Harbour all the way down to Millie Bobby Robin, all those people are getting huge pay raises. Everybody, the Duffer Brothers, everybody that worked on that show, it got immensely more expensive, which is fine, which is what you want. But Netflix, their model, that's all they can afford. If they were able to do a Stranger Things season 6, it would probably be astronomical. It probably wouldn't be cost effective, even with the amount of people that are watching their network. Because after that show is gone, if you don't have a show of that top tier network, it's going to drop. So you just spent a lot of money on content that's not going to have the same drawing power. It sucks, but in Discovery's case, I don't think it's a loss. 5 years is a win for Discovery. 5 years is a win for this show that brought Star Trek back on series TV. And we'll just see how it goes from there. So next question, Estella. All right, William, have you followed AI lately? Not just image art, but image art and video. Dude, 6 years, someone will be able to make their own jail. Yeah. You're also gonna be running into a lot of legal things with that and a lot of union stuff, because the actors union, the screen actors, and the writers are going to be because eventually, if this goes to form, you're going to be able to cut out a lot of people that you don't want to pay. And I think I see a war coming. I see some strikes coming over this, personally. Next one. What do you think about that thing? I'm going to cut you out of that.
AI's being, it's a new thing. It's a little bit scary to certain people. I find it interesting, but I can understand why people are getting weirded out by deep fakes and everything else.
Well, yeah, because people believe everything they see sometimes.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem. Most people believe what they see, and deep fakes can be a problem because of that. Most people take everything they see in media for granted. I mean, that's explained easily by the idiots that we have hanging out around us on YouTube. People who believe that just because some insider said something that's gospel, I mean,
yeah.
What is it we always say on our shows? We always say, don't take anything for granted until you hear it from the people in charge.
Yeah.
And inevitably, the dang public will sit there and go, We'll sit there and go, well, this insider on YouTube said this, and this person knows an insider. No, you don't. 90% of the guys who use the word "I know an insider" or "I got this from an insider," they're retarded.
And then you have the trades who do know, but like I said, they're not going to give you a straight and narrow because they want you to come back.
Well, the trades are starting to fight the quote unquote culture war, and that's where the trades are falling down. because you
Well,
now have trades like Bounding into Comics, which is primarily a conservative thing, which that dude pushes his religion into everything. Uh,
well, you also have like a variety in the Hollywood Reporter, who, like I said, they give you enough just to have you chasing your tail,
yeah,
and
but even them, William, we've caught in lies before, or
oh,
straight
I've
out
caught plenty of lies.
falsehoods. You know, and when you can't even trust Hollywood Reporter, then who are you going to listen to? I mean, like, Variety's even been caught in lies before, and it's like, and there's certain people in our community. I'm not going to name any names, but they live and breathe on them damn trades, and you have to tell them, no, guys, you can't depend on the trades, especially when you're talking about movies and stuff that are out 2 or 3 years. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like,
when you had that, the one I pointed out, and the example I use is when the whole James Gunn thing came out, and then the very next day he had to come out and basically disqualify half of it. That's to me. I'm like, if the guy who you're the target of your audience, your article has to come out and say half of that's true, the other some of it's some true and some of it's false. That means the majority of the stuff you put out wasn't reliable, and but you're
right.
using that reputation of that trade name, and everybody's saying, well, the trade's this, the trade's that, and all we do, like I said, is run ourselves into the wall, following people who at one time were very credible, but in the modern era, they're up against the internet and they're trying to catch up to the internet running in high heels is what they're trying to do, like running a track meet in high heels, while the
Well,
guy
and,
the
and
internet has got Nikes on.
well, the point I'm trying to make is it's YouTubers that talk about they have inside tracks that these trades are running up against, so they have to make up something.
Yeah,
Like
it's a
you
race
said,
to the bottom.
it's the speed of YouTube. It's no longer the speed of light anymore. It's the speed of YouTube.
Yep.
Like
So
for example, they announced Cobra Kai season 6 date today. Do you know there's already people making concept trailers that aren't even true? They're spliced. You know?
I still have yet to watch that show. I just can't. I just can't fathom me watching something based on the Karate Kid and not feeling really
Well,
fucking
you know
old.
what? You know what? You're missing a magnificent show that a lot of people love, and I'm just gonna leave it at that, old man.
Yeah. Okay, older man. All right. Next question. All right, question. I like Blue Button Honey. What other classic stories can you guys see being turned into a horror movie? For me, like King, Snow White, or Cinderella, or maybe Bambi. Bambi's next. Bambi's actually in that. Those other ones are not in the public domain yet, I think. But Bambi, the people who made Blue Blood and Honey are making Bambi.
Bambi's
That's
next,
all I
and
think
then
of.
after Bambi, it'll be Peter Pan.
Yeah, and then there's a Peter Pan out there now, but I don't know. It's a new Peter Pan, but that's not a horror one. But yeah, once these I think in the next three is I think 2026. Pretty much all of them will be public domain. So I think anything that was created and has 100-year lapse on it is they can come up with public domain. Now the companies will fight these things as far as like keeping you true to keeping you away. Like there were certain things you could not do in Pooh and Blood and Honey without getting sued by Disney, who was already pissed that you were doing it anyway. So yeah, but yeah, there's going to be more, Anthony. There's going to be more. What would I like to see? I don't know everything that's going in the public domain, but like I said, Peter Pan is up there. But I would see Pinocchio. Uh, I'd have to sit and think about that one because, like I said, my childhood you cannot be destroyed because my childhood already had horror and slashers in it. So you're taking these things that were people's pseudo childhoods and you're turning them into what was already my world. So I can't wait. So all right,
Okay,
go
public.
ahead.
Hold on. Public domain children's books that are already in the public domain that we could see if they can get their way into doing it. Um, you have Alice in Wonderland. We could get a horror version of that.
All right, hold on. Time out. It's already something based on drugs to begin with. Can we get more horror? I mean, White
Dude,
Rabbit.
there's a video game called Alice from like the middle to end '90s
Yeah,
that
with the
was
tattoo cat.
terrifying.
I have the toys for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And
McGee, something McGee's Alice in Wonderland, and then the cat. Alice has a knife, a butcher knife with blood on it.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, I have. Yeah. American McGee. American McGee.
yeah, and then you have The Wizard of Oz is public domain now.
Okay, so there you go. Yeah, I mean, some of these are already. I mean, like I said, some of them are already been not horrified, but
The Wind in the Willows. The Wind in the Willows with Mr. Toad. That could be horror.
Toad eating people with the tongue.
Treasure Island is in the public domain, so we could see that.
I can't see anything being done with that. That would be shocking, though.
The Velveteen Rabbit. That would make interesting horror fodder.
Yeah, spreading the plague. No, Superman and Batman will never be public domain.
No, because those are owned by DC exclusively.
Yeah, and they're created. So yeah.
We could get Peter Rabbit.
Oh, he gets put in his dad gets put in a pie. That's already horror.
Let's see. Hell, we could get a movie based on Grimm's fairy tales.
I wonder if he means, can we get something like with Pooh, Blood, and Honey? It was so soft and cuddly. Some of the ones you're bringing up are already fucking horrible, already disturbing.
Well, you've also got things like Cinderella, Snow White. Those are all public domain. Disney owns certain aspects of them, but not all of the aspects of them.
Yeah. Like you couldn't have Pooh wearing a shirt and no pants and Pooh, Blood, and Honey.
Now, we've already got horror versions of Hansel and Gretel, but they could make a new one. I would like to actually see a Rumpelstiltskin horror movie.
Or are you stealing babies?
Yeah, that would be cool.
I don't know. We already got like Leprechaun.
Dude, could you imagine a Little Mermaid horror movie? Where she's like eating people?
Well, if you draw the actual picture of what she looks like, she's not pretty to begin with. She's a monster. So yeah.
And like Stella says in the chat, Grimm's fairy tales are public domain. So
I could see a lot of them. It's just I think a lot of these guys are going to go for the shock value of of what they're doing. Like some of these things are close enough to being already horrific to begin with, but like Cinderella, Snow White. I mean, somebody will make Snow White about cocaine or something. I mean, drastically like that. So who knows? We're in for a lot of people getting pissed off. You ruined my childhood. Oh well, you didn't have much of a childhood. Cartoon.
If you let a movie or any piece of media ruin your childhood, then you're weak. Yeah. You're a small, weak, defeated creature. It's just like saying that the new Star Wars movies ruined your feelings about Star Wars. Why? It's not like they walked in your home and removed the original trilogy from you. You could completely and utterly forget about the sequels and just watch the original trilogy for the rest of your life. I know people who still ignore the prequels. They only hold the original trilogy as being the be-all and end-all.
See, I know young people who grew up after that who watch them in sequence and love it.
Oh, I grew up before that. I grew up with the original trilogy, and I watch them in sequence.
Yeah,
I love the prequels, but you have to understand, I was in college as the prequels were coming out.
Yeah, it was the 90s for me, so I enjoyed them.
So to me, it was like, okay, this is cool. I mean, I remember the night I went and saw Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace. I went with a group of friends. We were all dressed up in stupid cosplay costumes. We perpetrated a mock lightsaber combat in the parking lot of the movie theater. Okay?
I dig it. I get it.
I had a buddy who was dressed up as Darth Maul who legitimately wounded his ankle. He almost broke his ankle doing flips and jumps and stuff trying to be Darth Maul. I mean, we did it hard that night. And this dude screwed up his ankle bad enough to have to go to the hospital later on, but he dealt with the pain through the whole movie.
I remember I was working a graveyard, and it was in Vegas. It was playing 24 hours, so I just went. As soon as I got off my graveyard shift, I went to go see it. I was 99, so it was wow.
And no, Anthony, I am actually close to 50, man. I'm looking down the double barrel of 50, brother. Now, he said something in the chat. He just assumed I was in my 30s.
What?
No.
Anthony, you need to fix your screen or something, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm 47, brother.
Prequels are hot garbage for me. They haven't released a good movie since Empire Strikes Back. Attack of the Clones. I liked Attack of the Clones. I liked.
My favorite Star Wars movie is one of the prequels.
And Rogue One is my second favorite. So I mean, I guess it's
my favorite Star Wars movie. My top 3 Star Wars movies are going to sound really off to most people. My favorite Star Wars movie is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. My second favorite Star Wars movie is Rogue One. My third favorite is Return of the Jedi. I actually don't like Empire Strikes Back.
See, I got that as number 1.
Everybody else loves that fucking movie, and I don't. It's filler to me. It's stuck there between 2 movies, you know? I mean, all that movie is chase scenes. They run from Hoth. They run from Vader. They run from Jabba. You know, everybody's running somewhere. The only fool that's running towards the bad guys is Luke.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hero. I can't remember because when these came out, I listed them all. But I know for me, Empire was number 1, Rogue One was number 2, and then I had some of the other ones, but I had them all listed with one of those ranker things. I'm gonna have to pull those up one day. But yeah,
but the reason why Revenge of the Sith, the third prequel movie, is my favorite Star Wars movie is because for my whole time growing up and reading the extended universe books and everything else, my favorite character has always been Darth Vader. And not just Darth Vader, but Anakin Skywalker. And after the first 2 prequel movies, getting to actually see him fall in Revenge of the Sith, even though I knew it was coming, was visually stunning for me.
The fight on Mustafar was cool. Order 66, seeing that was cool. I thought he was much better. I mean, when you see Darth Vader at the end of Rogue One, where he just opens up and kills everybody on that ship.
And Palpatine is at his most menacing in Episode 3.
Oh yeah, when he kills all those Jedi, he's like, it's treason. Then yeah, and because it was kind of surprising because when he starts zipping around like Bison from Street Fighter and just killing all those guys.
When he jumped into that spin at them, that first spin, if you'll listen to it, he does this scream, like this roar. And what that did, if you read the novelization and look at the actual canon right now, what he did was he used what they call a Sith roar, a Sith scream, and it disoriented him. That's why he took down so many Jedi Masters all at once. Because
I always thought that because they didn't think that feeble old man could do that.
Well, that was part of it. I mean, they were shocked that he could move like that, but it's also because he did that roar. He threw out so much dark side energy that they were startled for a minute. They were like, "Oh my God, how can this guy be so evil?" You know?
Yeah, because I thought he just caught him off guard. He comes out with the saber. They just thought they were going to here to arrest this feeble little dude, and you know, Mace Windu actually beat him. Mace Windu actually had him beat. There was no way out for him.
Okay, so do you know why Windu got through that? Because Windu was already flirting close to the dark side anyway. His form of lightsaber combat, Vapad, was flirting with the dark side anyway. He always was really close to the dark side. That's what made him such a good Jedi Master, because he skirted the edge of the dark side but never fell into it. Yeah. And plus, that's why he could stand against that onslaught. And what I can't remember the name of it, but basically what Palpatine did to those 4 Jedi Masters is the same thing that Vader was doing on Bespin to Luke. He was causing fear in them and throwing them off base. And that's what Vader was doing to Luke by hiding but he was using the Force to influence Luke's emotions, and that's what Palpatine was doing to those Jedi Masters.
Yeah. I thought Palpatine was a fraud. I hated him as an enemy simply because it just reminds me because when he's not a true Sith Lord. He's just basically like a guy who opened up a storage unit and found some artifacts and learned from that. And then he had his master Darth Plagueis, but all those guys are fraud. All they did was look up the artifacts and the holocrons and everything else, and that's why Emperor Palpatine burns his body out like that because he doesn't know how to use the power. That power, he's not supposed to look like that. He doesn't know how to control that power to where it doesn't rot his body.
And the reason for that is because after about 300 years of the rule of two, about 300 years after Bane stopped being a Jedi, stopped being a Sith, about 300 years after Darth Bane actually died to his apprentice Zana, there was a Sith by the name of Darth Vivectus. And Darth Vivectus was never evil. He was a Sith, but he didn't believe in the evil of the Sith. He didn't believe in the Sith Empire. He was a Sith only because some of the teachings of the Sith applied to what he was doing. And he pretty much broke the rule of two. Palpatine always wanted to bring the Empire, the Sith Empire back. Bane never did. Bane did the rule of two for a purpose, because he felt that the Sith Empire should never rise again. Palpatine and Pelagius were always obsessed with bringing back the Empire, and it should have never happened that way.
Well, yeah, the origins of the Sith. I mean, like I said, these Sith that you see in these movies are frauds to begin with because the Sith were a race. Yeah. They were actually a race of people. They were a race of alchemists that the Dark Jedi who separated and basically literally interbred with. And that was what they freed on, Naga Sadao, all those guys. I mean, they need to do movies on those. Out of the sequel trilogy, I choose The Last Jedi. Wow, dude. Only for that scene where the Porg smashed into the window like a Garfield puppet and part rescued the whole movie for me. Wow. Now,
you know what rescued The Last Jedi for me? Luke tossing the lightsaber over his shoulder.
Did that happen in The Last Jedi, or did that happen in oh yeah, that was The Last Jedi.
It happened in the first part of The Last Jedi. And you know why that scene called out to me? Because he's like, the Jedi were always taught. What did Obi-Wan say to Anakin about his lightsaber in Episode 2? He said, "This weapon is your life," right? Luke had been detached so much from being a Jedi that he just kind of walked away and was like, "Screw these things. Like, I don't care," And if you'll notice the look he gave Rey when she showed up, he was like, "Why are you here? What do you want? Go away."
The direction that they took with the sequel series, I don't hate it as much as other people do, but as they're never Star Wars films are never going to be as good for me as long as they are too afraid to break away from this neighborhood. Until they are, it's just going to be people are getting into their 80s. Let's just go ahead and just deep bake them or make them younger or de-age them instead of just going on. If you have to put a new younger face on your star character, it's time to move on from that star character.
Well, I think The Mandalorian is going in a good direction.
Mandalorian's on TV though. It's a 35-minute, a week for what, 8 weeks? I'm talking about future film.
It'll be 10 weeks, but and some of the episodes are going to be longer than that first episode we got.
Yeah, because that 35-minute shit that's for the birds. And like I said, to me, Star Wars is about the movies. I love some of these shows, but the movies is what to me drives. It's just the exact same opposite as for Star Trek. Star Trek is not driven by film; it's driven by Star Trek on TV. Well, it's the exact same opposite for Star Wars. So, yeah, we got The Mandalorian, but these shows will never take the place of the actual full length features. That's fine.
All right, Stella. Since we're on the Star Wars thing, go ahead and highlight some of the Star Wars questions, and then we need to move on past them. because there's other questions that are far behind that we need to answer.
How did I get on Star Wars anyway? Damn it.
Oh, we started talking about streaming stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. That's that. Are you there? Oh, hold on. Okay, there we go. Stella, are you there?
I thought she was.
She didn't say she backed out, but okay, here we go. I'll just highlight some of these questions until she pops back in. Oh, there we go. She just popped up something new. William, which Batman or Superman comic do you recommend if I wanted to see the first appearance of Mongol for each of those superheroes? Mongol was never a Batman villain.
He's more of a Superman than a villain. He's
Superman
fought Green
and Green
Lantern a
Lantern.
couple times. Yeah. I had never really. I would just look up his first appearance in general. His first appearances in what, Action Comics? Marvel's first appearance was in DC Comics Presents number 27. It's actually a pretty relevant or recent character, 1980, created by Jim Starlin.
He's more of a recent invention.
Son of Mongol.
So, like William said, his early stuff, the stuff during the reign of the Supermen, where he was responsible for Coast City.
Oh, that's right. That's that. In fact, you know what? Reign of Superman and Emerald Twilight probably be your best bets because he's that's where I would go because he was responsible for the destructions. That's right. That's one of his biggest storylines. But he has other storylines throughout the last 40 some odd years that he's been around. He had Son of Mongol, and then he was restarted twice. He was in the Bronze Age, and he's stronger than Superman, almost invulnerable to harm. So, yeah, I would start with that. I would start with his earlier appearances in DC Comics Presents. Then I would go into the Reign of Superman storyline because he's pivotal. He's literally what he does, and that storyline literally leads to Parallax and Kyle Rayner and Emerald Twilight. So there you go. The Batman one, I don't have a question. I don't have an answer for you because I'm not aware. He may have appeared in Batman, but I'm just not openly aware of those particular appearances. All right, next one. Nothing concrete, no. Just rumors.
Yes, I do have news. A little bit of news I just found on that. According to the IMDb, the director is going to be Francis Lawrence. Steve Bissette, Jamie Delano, and Akiva Goldsman are going to be the writers on that, and the only two actors so far cast are Keanu Reeves and Peter Stormare.
Is it going forward? Because I heard it was just.
It still appears to be building. It still appears to be in production.
Pre-production. Okay.
Yeah, pre-production.
I don't know if we're ever going to see this movie. I don't know if he wants to use that character going into what his Swamp Thing will be, and if he wants to use a completely different character. I don't know if we'll ever see that character, other than the one James Gunn presents. But I could be wrong. All right, next one.
It looks like the budget for it's going to be an estimated $150 million. $150 million.
Yeah, I'm going to go 50-50 that movie never gets made. But, like I said, given the current climate, given the current organizational structure, what's going on, and given his plans for that particular part of the DC universe, I would not be surprised if you just never heard of that movie again. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised if you hear about it again tomorrow. But right now, I see it happening.
There was a spokesman from Warner Brothers that confirmed on February 7th this year that Constantine 2 is not scrapped and is going into pre-production. So That was the
Yeah,
last
I
information.
remember that hearing that, and I'm like, you know, like I said, there's as much evidence that it could happen as there is that it couldn't happen. But I mean, given the fact that we're going to be using these same characters again, I don't know if he's going to be willing to do it right as he's doing Swamp Thing. Because you're probably going to have a proper Constantine in that, a British Constantine. Because I know James Gunn favors.
And Akiva Goldsmith, one of the writers on the story for the movie, says the new film expands on the themes the original brought about maintaining the barrier between Earth and the evil creatures that are on the other side. He gave all the credit to Keanu Reeves for making the film actually happen. This is a credit to Keanu, who endlessly has said, "This is the character I want to return to." Finally, he said it enough times that it's stuck. So I'm coming out of the gate fast. We're doing it with J.J. Abrams and Francis and Keanu, and I have been pretty deep in the story-breaking stage. The character is very much Keanu, and the way he and Francis Lawrence saw the world of good and evil, and the wonderful and authentic noir, where there's a world behind the world of good and evil, coexisting with our own world right up to the close. Beyond that, we are still discovering it as I am writing the script. So,
All right.
that's all the information we have, and it may involve Swamp Thing.
Kiana, I love you. You're doing great with everything that's going on. John Wick. I don't think Constantine 2 is getting made, but if it does, more power to you. But in this current situation, I think they could go ahead and write the script. I think they could get all that done. I just don't think, especially if he's going to be using Swamp Thing, I doubt this movie gets made, but pleasantly surprised if it did. So, all right, JR Server question. Apparently, there's some rumors that JSA might appear in Shazam 2. I'd love to see Hawkman again. Personally, he was really cool. Black Adam. Thoughts on that? I have no concrete thing to go on. It would be very cool. It would be tragic. I mean, because you don't. When it comes to Black Adam and Shazam, if you follow the history of JSA, they aren't on the same Earth as the normal mainline Earth is anyway. So you find that out when the Golden Age, and Silver Age, in the Bronze Age and all that, they start telling you what is what. Each one of those ages basically had a different reality. JSA and like I'd always say, there'd be an annual crossover between Justice Society versus JLA. It was the annuals that they would do it with, and it was every year. Each year, one would cross over into the other's Earth, and they would team up or fight each other for a little bit, and they'd find some common enemy. But yeah, JSA is actually originally on a different Earth, and that older Superman that you see in Crisis is from that Earth, and the younger Superman that stays eternally young all the time was from the modern era before they consolidated. So you could make it to where Shazam, Black Adam, and JSA all exist on one Earth, while the mainline continuity that you're creating. So I don't know anything to the rumors yet, but it's just laying that out for you right there is a possibility, if they are true, how it could go down without causing any friction with what James Gunn's currently doing. All right, next one. Unless you want to answer
that. We haven't heard any actual news on that, so I probably not.
All right, numbers. So he's asking this one to you.
Okay, Thade, would you see Alice in Wonderland as a psychedelic horror movie done in the same vein as Mandy? It could be, and that would be an interesting way of doing it. But like William said, it already borders on like drug insanity anyway. So
they're doing mushrooms. All right, they're doing opium. They're taking pills.
I mean, Lewis Carroll was probably on opium when he was writing that story, so...
Exactly. There's a white rabbit, and in drug culture, come on, chasing the white rabbit.
Yeah.
I mean, what more can you do to make that, the scariest thing about that movie is that they put it in front of kids. So, there you go. All right, I'm going to use the restroom real quick. Go ahead and take over real quick.
All right, keep feeding me questions, Stella. and I'll answer to the best of my ability. Since WB is planning to do more Lord of the Rings movies, do you think they just do a remake of the trilogy, or do you think the first stage of Middle Earth with Morgoth? We could get the Cimmeral story. That would be interesting. I actually like the Cimmerillians, so we could get the story of the Cimmerals. We could get some first age stuff. I think they're going to jump around the timeline with Lord of the Rings, so it's possible. I don't think they're going to remake the original Peter Jackson trilogy, though. That would be like shooting themselves in the foot. Any other questions just specifically for me until William gets back? Some of the other questions we can't answer. So. Fourth, my Constantine is actually the guy from the Legends of Tomorrow, from the CW. Oh, okay, cool. Got a new question pop in there, Stella, at the bottom there. Could have defeated the Emperor if didn't join him since Dooku was a Padawan of Yoda. It's possible, but not bloody likely. Palpatine only taught Dooku certain things about the dark side, and Yoda didn't teach him anything about the dark side except for not to use it. So, plus he was a 90-year-old man or 85-year-old man at the time. So I don't think that he could have defeated Palpatine if he wasn't a Darksider. Fourth, the only thing about, Zeno, the only thing about Black Adam that interested me at all was the JSA. I didn't care about The Rock's Black Adam at all.
Hello.
Hey, you. What's up?
Oh, no, I just, um, my headache is flaring, so I'm not able to group the questions like you'd liked.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm just like, are you kidding me? But anyway.
Two Star Wars questions. If they continue the sequel era, do you think they do more movies or focus on TV shows? And do you think fans overrate the Order 66 storyline? Well, first of all, I am like William at this point. If I hear about the Skywalkers anymore in the sequel era, I'm going to pull my hair out and scream and throw things. There's so many other stories involving Star Wars, the Star Wars universe, that they could tell. They don't have to pad it with Skywalker BS. Now, if they pop in and pop out, that's fine. But if it's focused on this, like the Luke cameos in Book of Boba Fett, were fine. But if we focus on the Skywalker family again, I'm going to probably walk away from Star Wars for a while. I would actually personally love to see a past, like the old Republic stuff, the old Sith War stuff. That would be nice. As for Order 66, no, I don't think Order 66 was overrated. I think it was a continuation of a storyline, and I think that the little bits and pieces of Order 66 that we're getting, like the little flashbacks we got in Kenobi, the little things, like we got in Episode 3, the stuff we've gotten in the Book of Boba Fett from the and the Mandalorian from the view of the little guy. I think that I honestly think that we're and the stuff that's in like the Clone Wars, the last season of Clone Wars, and the stuff the flashbacks that were in the Rebels show. I think that would be cool. Personally, there's the one story I really want to see is there's a story from the ancient days before the Republic, where the Tog and there were two races on Coruscant. It was the Tog and the Daiwurta Verda, which were the people of Shadow. They fought a civil war on the planet of Coruscant before it became a city planet. The Tog are actually the ancestors of the Mandalorians, and the people of Shadow, the warriors of Shadow, are the ancestors of humankind on Coruscant. And I would love to see that time period. I would love to see the early Sith time period. I would love to see the Sith Wars. There's so much that could be done with Star Wars that I would rather them focus on. That would actually be that would be a cool story. Do you think Brock Lesnar retired from wrestling to go back to UFC? I don't know, man. Brock's getting old. You can only fight for so long. Say it for me. It would be honestly be cool to see Star Wars movies based on when certain Jedi Council members like Mace Windu, when he was a Padawan, to see who he learned from. We're gonna get some High Republic stuff, which is gonna involve that. We're gonna see Yoda as a youngling, most likely. We're gonna see Yoda as a young Jedi Knight, Jedi Master, most likely. They will make movies or content in the High Republic era. It's just a matter of time. William's on the phone. Stella went back to the back. Is Grogu just a baby version of the Yoda we see in Star Wars movies, or is he just another member of the species? We don't know yet. Grogu could be. Grogu could be a baby member of the species. But he could also be a clone of Yoda. We're not, all we're told of his past is that he was at the Jedi Temple during Order 66, and that he was young, and that's all we're told. Okay, looks like William's going to be a few minutes longer, so keep sending questions my way. I am not much of a basketball guy, so I am not the guy to ask that question. I'm more of a football and hockey dude.
Yeah, all I know is that LeBron beat Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's scoring record, and now he's on the disabled list for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know much about basketball. I'm more of a rugby, football, soccer, hockey kind of guy, so. Who would win in a fight between Mesopotamian's Dagon, Lovecraft's Dagon, or Ben 10's Dagon? Lovecraft's Dagon, because holy hell, that's a monster from the outer dark. I'm not sure, but did you play the Five Nights at Freddy's game? And if you did, are you excited that they're doing a movie based on the game? No, I did not play the Five Nights at Freddy game. I have seen it played. It seems an interesting game to me, and I'm willing to watch a movie based on it because the game's interesting. So.
I forgot him on screen. Yeah, we're caught up. Otherwise, It's just everyone chatting to each other.
William is handling a customer right now.
Yeah.
So he will be back soon. Thade, what were your thoughts on when you heard that John Madden died? I was sad. I grew up with Madden. I grew up playing the Madden video games. He was a great announcer. There's a Warhammer question up above that, babe. Okay. What's my opinion on Warhammer 40k Dark Tide? They need to pull it out of beta, but it seems fun. I've actually gotten to play some of the beta, so it's good for a first person form of Warhammer 40k. Okay. Thade, did you hear that Jackie Chan has been cast as Splinter in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, with also the trailer coming out Monday? Are you excited? I'm willing to give it a chance. I grew up in the '80s, so I grew up with the Turtles. I've read the original indie comic books that the Ninja Turtles is based on. They are very violent comic books. I don't think, however, that we'll ever see a media version of what the comic books were, because they've made them too much for kids. But I'm willing to give it a chance. So.
What's up?
Yeah.
Lead a customer in, needed directions, so I got somebody coming in. All right, where we at?
Next one, huh? Say Quantumania, Cocaine Bear, or Creed 3. I have not seen any of the three at this point.
Creed 3.
But I'm hearing good things about Creed 3, that it's probably the best out of the bunch. I'm also hearing Cocaine Bear was good. I'm waiting till it comes to streaming.
It was okay.
And Quantumania, I know what happens in the movie. I pretty much had the whole movie spoiled, but I really don't have an opinion on it all that much until I actually see it on streaming. And I mean, it's a Marvel movie, so I'm going to watch it. So,
quality-wise, it goes Creed, Quantumania, and Cocaine Bear.
But I mean, if you're gonna put a Marvel movie up against Creed 3, Creed 3 is gonna win every time. I mean, it's a better quality made movie. It's a drama. It's got more, gravitas to it than
a good Marvel movie. A good Marvel movie could beat it, but this just wasn't a good Marvel movie. It's like if this is Captain America: Civil War or Captain America: The First Avenger going up against Creed 3, then Captain America, in my opinion, would win out. But because this movie is just not on that level, then Creed just stomps it, in my opinion. But it's all subjective, so
I'm a big fan of Splinter Cell games. Can that work better as a feature-length film or streaming series? Streaming. That John Clancy stuff works really well as a streaming show.
Never played Splinter Cell, so I don't have an answer for you there.
What's your opinion on the Shin Megami Tensei games and its spinoff like Persona and Devil Summoner? I liked Persona. I've never played Devil Summoner. William.
Well, no, I've never played those games. I'm sorry.
Yeah, William's not a games guy, so we can move on from that question. Is there any update yet on if that whole story from Hollywood Reporter and Deadline was true, that they were already placing Kevin Feige as head of Disney Entertainment? We won't know that for a couple of years, whether he takes the job or not.
I've never heard any basis for it. But I never really know.
Well, it was rumored that Iger's grooming Kevin Feige to take, because the guy that's under Iger is going to step up to take Iger's position, and that Kevin Feige is going to step up and take that guy's position. And I mean, I could see it. If Kevin steps up, then that'll put him over more than just Marvel. That'll put him over all the IPs at Disney, because he'll be head of Disney Studios, not just Marvel Studios.
Yeah, it makes sense. It would be a natural progression. I just haven't heard anything, outside of that initial story.
John Madden and Pat Summerall are the Bert and Ernie of football. Yes, they are.
I can't disagree with that. Or the two guys in the Muppets, the guys in the balcony.
Yeah, the God, what were their names? Who were the hecklers in Muppets?
I can't remember. I never even knew that they had names till later in life for me. So
Hold on, I gotta look that up now.
Statler and Waldorf.
Statler and Waldorf.
Waldorf.
Yeah, yeah, they are more like Statler and Waldorf than Bert and Ernie. Thank you, Sella. I knew she would know that. Which Persona game is my favorite? Probably the original. Zeno, I was disappointed that Goodwill Hunting had nothing to do with hunting inside a Goodwill.
We're caught up. I just realized I could insert myself and tell you instead of typing it in the chat.
Oh,
okay.
that was hilarious.
So, ask more questions, guys and gals.
All right, and then we're probably going to jump into. So what did we not hit so far? That was on my.
Yes, Alastair, the first and second game. That's the what I mean. Yes, those are the only two Persona games I've played. Are the first two, and I prefer those, I suppose, because I've only played the first two.
I have played none. Sorry, it's not my thing. Let's look up. Let me bring up one of our main topics. And
Dave, what are your favorite Gundam games from PS2 and PS3? I did not play the Gundam games back during PS2, and I never owned a PS3, so I really couldn't answer that question. Possibly. I've never really heard. I just know that Statler and Waldorf were cool.
Statler and Waldorf are famous hotels in New York City. Muppets were based in New York City. So that's where the names came from.
Well, there's your answer then, guys.
All right. So
what was the movie that was sued for false advertising and won?
That was Anna de Mars. What was it?
No, there's a movie that was. Hold on. I gotta look this up now.
It was Anna de Mars was in it, so I know that.
Well, that's a recent idea. That's a recent thing that's being sued for false advertising. Oh, no, you're right. The Ana de Armas movie just won. The judge ruled in favor of Ana de Armas. Apparently the fans can sue over deceptive reasoning. Wow.
Yeah. Can they win is where my, is I mean, anybody can sue anybody, but I'm wondering what are their odds for winning.
Fourth, I disagree with you on The Last of Us. I'm enjoying it. So, I guess we're just at odds on that one.
Alright, so
we're caught up again.
Alright, so I'm gonna bring us into the King sphere again. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the Scarlet Centurion. So let me get my screen share. I was trying to do that while you guys are doing that, but it was more of a. This is such a pain in the ass the way they do this now. I'm at a loss there. All right, are we sharing? Here we go. I did it. I'll be damned.
There we go.
I'm going to start with the Scarlet.
I've now made the Scarlet Centurion my my avatar.
Oh. All right, so this article, this is from Marvel's actual Marvel database. This article covers Nathaniel Richards' incarnation as the Scarlet Centurion. For incarnations of Richards, see Iron Lad, Kid or So that's all. Those ones we've already covered. So this week we're covering one of these, or one of three of these, and it is Scarlet Centurion. So we're going to go over his origin real quick. All right, Nathaniel Richards was born in the 30th century of Earth 6311, a reality where humanity never went into the Dark Ages. After centuries of advancement in warfare, uh, peace was brought to the land by a time traveler from Earth 616 named Nathaniel Richards. Because Richards brought peace to this war-torn future, he became known as a legendary benefactor. The Nathaniel Richards born in this reality is said to have a descendant of the said to be a descendant of the benefactor, although other records indicate that he may also be a descendant of a Latvian monarch known as Doctor Doom, which is a mystery we'll never know unless they tell you in the movies. At the age of 16, intervention from his future self, Kang the Conqueror, resulted in Nathaniel to try and prevent his eventual transformation into Kang, briefly becoming the young hero known as Iron Lad. The youth briefly had his stint as a supervillain known as Kitty Mortis, very brief. However, Nathaniel Richards eventually returned to his native time, finally to follow his proper destined path, possibly with his memories as Iron Lad erased. However, at this time, there is no conclusive explanation, and events leading to this are yet unrecorded. As an adult, Nathaniel discovered a time machine, and having grown bored of his peaceful time, traveled back in time to ancient Egypt. That's where he's Ramatut, 616. There he set himself up as Pharaoh Ramatut until he was ousted from the position by the Fantastic Four. Ramatut tried to flee back to his own era, but was caught in a time storm and was forced to appear in a modern era at Earth 616. A chance encounter with his possible ancestor, Doctor Doom, inspired by Nathaniel to abandon the Ramatut guys and assume one similar to Doom. Thus, the Scarlet Centurion was born. And
that is the cover of Avengers Annual number 2, the first appearance of the Scarlet Centurion.
All right. So, and we're going to go to Earth 689. Wow, this is one of the ones that has been in the most of the old multiverse for as far as I know. Scarlet Centurion then decided to conquer the modern age of heroes by using the Avengers as his pawns. He traveled back in time to early in the Avengers' career, following their battle with the Space Phantom. That was Avengers number 2. Originally, this battle ended with the Hulk leaving the group, thanks to the team's growing mistrust of him. However, the Scarlet Centurion appeared before the Avengers before Hulk could leave, creating a divergent reality using an advanced version of his will-sapping ultra-diode ray. Wow, that sounds like fun. The Scarlet Centurion convinced the Avengers that their future was doomed by Armageddon. If the superhuman population were to continue to increase, it would cause a devastating world war. The Avengers were influenced to believing this and went into a campaign to neutralize and imprison every superhuman being, including the reality's heroes and villains. The Avengers then set themselves up as the only superhumans on the planet, policing any situations where new ones might be created or born. The Centurion also had them disassemble Dr. Doom's time platform and spread its components throughout different locations. The Centurion then began plotting his Avengers versus the current Earth 616 counterparts. To this end, the Centurion used the Ultra Diode Ray. I got to get one of those to affect the minds of the Avengers in Earth 616, which is the mainline Marvel universe in the comics. First, he targeted Captain America, making the hero concerned over the fate of his partner Bucky during World War II. He then convinced his fellow Avengers to use the time platform of their reality, Doctor Doom. The team traveled back in time to 1944 to invisibly witness Baron Zemo's attempt to destroy both Cap and Bucky with a bomb rigged the drone plane. So let's go. So let's see. All right, legacy. Nathaniel Richards deemed his foray as a Scarlet Centurion to be a complete failure, resumed his Ramatut guys. However, his sudden ejection from Earth 689 also created a divergent Scarlet Centurion. This alternate version is probably the best known one. Version ended up in Earth 712 and became a successful conqueror. He attempted to conquer the modern day Earth of that reality, regularly clashing with the Squadron Supreme. So that's the most. I didn't have it up on the screen this whole time.
No, it's because I shared the cover and it dropped it.
Okay, hold on.
There you go.
There it goes. Oh, so I was reading that whole time. Up, then it goes away. So where is he? Yeah, so there, right there, you kind of see him. You see him going back. Get that out the way. Oops, no, I want to see.
Should be Ramatut.
Yeah, the final victory of Rama Tut. So there you go. And then, so once again, he has no powers, but he's just a genius level intellect. I mean,
And right now, I'm thumbing through the comic book that he first appeared in, Avengers Annual #2,
yeah,
and he's
and
horribly drawn.
Yeah, he's a horribly designed character too, by the way.
Oh, he's horribly drawn in this issue, like horribly so.
There is a live action version that you see at the end of Quantum Mania. It's been out a while. I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but I'll let you know that a version of the Scarlet Centurion is in Ant-Man Quantum Mania, and it looks like shit. All right. As a matter of fact, all the versions of Kang that are in that post-credit scene, except for Kang himself, look like shit. Or Mortis looks like a what? Why is he blue or whatever? It just looked bad to me. I didn't like the way that what they did with the skin tone there. But the suit was recognizable as a Mortis. Obviously, Kang looks like Kang, but the Scarlet Centurion, in my opinion, looked like shit. So I hope they improve on that design. So, all right. So that is the history, and the reason why you need to know that is because this is one of the identities where he goes back and forth from each other. He actually assumes this identity several times. Every time he assumes it, he creates a divergent reality. So what you're seeing in the Loki and what you're seeing in at the end of the credit scene, where you're seeing the divergent timelines, that's this stuff like this is what's causing it. All right, so he possesses a large spaceship capable of travel through both time and space. So that's basically like it's the same ship that Rama Tut has that looks like it speaks. All right. So
I do want to say this really quick. Daniel Martin in the chat says, it's crazy to think people think Thanos is more powerful than Kang. What a disservice the MCU has done. No, actually, what it is that they're different in how they approach things. Thanos felt that he was righteous in what he was doing. Kang is at this point, he seems still unsure of what he wants to be or what he wants to do.
Yeah, one of them's an idiot and one of them's a genius. And when you watch them and when you read the comics, you realize which one's the idiot. And I'm going to give you a clue. It's the guy with the truffles on his chin. All right, question. And all of these appearances in the comics, is Apocalypse always been at the mega level mutant? No. Or was he just no? What ends up happening with Apocalypse is over time, he not only experiments on himself, but he's experimented upon, and he has access to celestial technology. If you go back to his early appearances in 1987, 1988, and the Fall of the Mutants, which was a storyline that took place across all mutant comics, but the X Factor version of it, you get to see his ship. He has this massive ship that's almost the size of Manhattan, and it's a celestial ship. He has access to technology that augments his powers, and he learns over thousands of years to be. He's a bioengineer himself, so he's a genius beyond genius level already. And then he has access to whatever the Celestials have, and you know what the Celestials can do. Celestials literally created entire species. So Apocalypse's original powers is just as a shapeshifter, but he augments himself and is augmented to the point where you see him now.
Yeah, his original power, like William said, he could only alter his body composition. Now he's off the scales in power.
Yeah. Rama Tut has a connection to the Apocalypse. Yes.
Yes.
When Rama Tut, when he's defeated as Kang and he goes back, or Scarlet Centurion, whichever one the versions you read, he goes back to ancient Egypt because he knows that Apocalypse is there, and he wants to take control of Apocalypse and basically make him his disciple. That's how. That's when you first, if you read like the story we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, Rise of Apocalypse, it explains it all in there. But Rama Tut came back to that point in time because he knew Sabanur, which is Apocalypse's real name, was there, and he wanted to use him, and it backfires. And throughout, Apocalypse uses that to pretty much become what he is.
Also, just another thing I wanted to add in, another original power of Apocalypse was immortality because he is an external. Not eternal, external. There's mutants that are immortal. They're known as the externals.
Yeah. That external thing was later on, but yeah, they added that because
Well, I mean,
it was
Apocalypse has been around for 5,000 years, so.
well, that was originally because he was altered. His first when they first began experimenting, on him. Hold on, let me Apocalypse character. Yeah, because they've changed it. I mean, all right. So let's see, conception and creation. It goes to fictional biography. Let's go ahead and read this because it's kind of cool, and it basically covers the rise of Apocalypse. All right, the being that would be called Apocalypse was born thousands of years ago in Aqaba, that's Egypt. He was born with the mutant X gene. Because of his gray skin and his blue lips, his people abandoned him as an infani. All right, I'm sorry. I thought that was a special word. It's just they spelled it wrong here. As an infant, he was rescued by Baal of the Sandstormers, who saw the child's potential power and will to survive. Baal named him En Saba Nora, which is the name he would go for.
The first one. The first one.
Yeah.
Which is what that stands for. Insaban,
yeah,
the first one.
It's the first one, and it's an Egyptian, or is it?
And it's the language of the Sandstormers, but it's basically Egyptian.
Okay. Which Marvel job?
I do want to read one thing really quick. And I'm looking off the Marvel database. As an external, Apocalypse's original body was immortal. Even before being modified by the celestial ship, he had lived for thousands of years. Though he has been put out of commission or seemingly destroyed for various periods of time, Apocalypse cannot be permanently killed. It also says that he has suffered the techno-organic virus twice in his existence.
Yeah. Now, those things that you just read, those are things that came after his original origin was retcon, but now are part of his canon. So now he's the good buddy before. All right. So Sandstormers lived by the creed of survival of the fittest, believing that only those who were strong enough to survive hardship and direct conflict were worthy of life. It was also relevant during the Apocalypse Wars that while still a young boy, En Saba Nora was generous and selfless. To the chagrin of Baal, a time displaced En Saba Nora and all new X-Men Beast. Oh, remember that's the Dark Beast. That's where it started to be retcon. Tried to save En Saba Nora, but allowed himself to be captured to help them escape. Around this time, the time traveler Kang the Conqueror. Now we get into the point where it crosses over into our subject. Arrived in Egypt, assumed the identity of the pharaoh Ramatut, knowing who En Saba Nora was fated to become and where he was. Ramatut sent General Ozymandias and an army to destroy the Sandstormers and find the young Apocalypse. En Saba Nora and Baal were injured and sought refuge in a cave. Before he died, Baal revealed advanced alien technology hidden in the cave, left behind by DDT-like aliens known as Celestials. Vowing revenge on Ramatut, En Saba Nora entered the Pharaoh's city posing as a slave. I remember this. He beat. Yeah, this is my. I really need to do a special on that one amongst other things. But
we need to do a Sci-Fi Center presents on just Apocalypse.
Yeah. Vowing revenge against Ramatut, En Saba Nora in the city, posing as a slave, drew the romantic contingent of Ozymandias' sister Nefri. On seeing his mutant's true appearance, Nefri rejected him and turned to her brother for protection. Heartbroken, En Saba Nora's rage caused his mutant abilities to fully emerge. Rampaging, he renamed himself Apocalypse. Ramatut fled, and En Saba Nora used his celestial technology to transform his former mentor Ozymandias into a blind clairvoyant made of living stone. I remember that was cool. Now enslaved to Apocalypse. As the years went on, Apocalypse found he no longer aged. All right. It is revealed in the series Shield series that Apocalypse, at some point of his days in ancient Egypt, joined forces with the Brotherhood of the Shield to successfully fend off the Brood invasion. Also present were Imhotep and a man who was either the moon god Khonshu or his first Moon Knight Avatar champion. So yeah, that's the early agents, and then it goes on to tell you a lot of the things that that they retcon. By the way, when I say James Gunn can selectively retcon whatever he wants, and instead of doing a full reboot, Apocalypse is a perfect prime example of what that would be. Because his
Also,
origin,
I want to briefly read, and it goes along with the celestial thing you're talking about. Due to Apocalypse being altered by celestial technology and his power enhancement through was that the techno-organic virus was needed to allow this to happen, and because of this, Apocalypse's body is ravaged by the techno-organic virus itself, and he must find and switch bodies regularly by transferring his consciousness and powers into a succession of host bodies, abandoning each one when it becomes too weak after burning through each body faster than the last to contain his full power in order to survive. Basically, he burns out bodies. Like, there's all the way into the future where he's like having to. That's why he uses Sinister, because he has Sinister breed perfect, powerful mutants for him to basically inhabit, and he burns out bodies, but he has to like body jump.
yeah, kind of like Denver. H. Bart, 100% yes. That's where I think all this is going. I think eventually, once Kang is ultimately defeated in Kang Dynasty, it'll be a post-credit scene, and it will be him traveling back in time. And the last thing you'll see is him meeting Apocalypse, or him taking Apocalypse under his wing, and he'll introduce himself as I'm the Pharaoh Ramotet or whatever, something like that. So I 100% agree. And Ramotet, he will inadvertently establish mutants, but it will be Apocalypse that does it, because Apocalypse is a genetic engineer, like I was telling you, and he is probably going to have a big part to play over the next thousands of years before the modern era of altering things. And as far as the MCU goes, he'll probably be the main baddie. I think this is going to end up leading to when the X-Men take over this entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then leading up to what will be Age of Apocalypse. All right, and yes, I do think you will see Iron Man. Yes, definitely, you will see Iron Man, because they are eventually going to do Young Avengers, and Iron Lad is a founding member, and he ties into all this. And by the time you get to Iron Man, you'll have a good understanding of what this whole King pretzel is.
Okay, Hercules has already been cast in the MCU. He's in the end credit scene for Thor: Love and Thunder. The actor's name is Brett Goldstein, and he will continue being Hercules further. As for Ares, I don't know who I would cast to play Ares in the MCU.
You could get pretty much anybody.
Probably a bodybuilder type. Who would you guys cast as Doctor Doom?
Michael Fassbender, but he's already been Magneto. It's tough because he's in a mask half the time, so it's not like you could. I mean, that's a tough one because of the fact that you really never see him.
Christoph Waltz, I think, could play Doctor Doom rather well. He has that Eastern European kind of accent that Doctor Doom will have, most likely. He's also just menacing sometimes when he's on set. Another one that I think could do it would be Ben Mendelsohn.
I could think of just about anybody you name would probably work. James Marsden. I mean, there's a lot of people that will work simply because he's covered up for the most part. And you rarely see Dr. Doom's face and mannerisms and everything else. And it all depends on how much of it would be. And thank you for the $5 super chat, H Park. It's mannerisms, and a lot of it are probably going to be CGI anyway. So who knows?
Also, and this is just kind of out of the park. Remy Malek, I think, could do a good Dr. Doom.
Question: taking away from the Phoenix Force from Jean Grey, who is the most powerful Omega level immune? There's a lot of them. You have Franklin Richards. You have Vulcan, who is Gabriel Summer.
Still, in my opinion, even without the Phoenix Force, Jean is a Omega level telekinetic and telepathic. She actually outdoes Xavier. She is currently the strongest telekinetic telepathic on the planet. As for who is the strongest Omega level mutant, well, now that they've retconned Franklin out as being a mutant, I'd have to say that
anymore. What do you mean?
The new rumor is since the whole Krakoa thing, is that he he basically changed his genetics. He himself changed his own genetics to make himself a mutant. That he's not a born mutant. But being a reality warper, if you just mean mutants, I would say Mad Jim Jaspers because he's a reality warper. The brother of the Braddocks, Jamie Braddock, he's a reality warper. Legion is a reality warper. But as for Omega level mutants, the most powerful mutant out there in the multiverse is a character called the Marquis of Death. His name was Clyde Wincham. He was so powerful that he erased himself from history. But also destroyed many different realities doing so.
That story.
But currently, Jean Grey, I would say, is still very powerful even without the Phoenix.
I would take the current. I mean, like I said, pre-retcon, and make no mistake. If they ever were to use these characters in movies, they're going to go with the pre-retcon versions. In my opinion, I think it would be Franklin Richards, and then after that, it would be Vulcan.
Yeah, because Vulcan is the strongest of the Summers brothers.
Yeah, they can't hurt each other. That's hilarious.
Yeah, none of the three can hurt each other. That's hilarious.
Because of the energy signature. So there you go. Next question.
Analyzing Thanos, would you say that he is a psychopath with DID traits or a sociopath? He's a sociopath. He doesn't do things that are psychotic.
Yeah, he's just not. He has no reasoning because of his upbringing and everything else. He was an outcast and he worshipped death. That was his whole thing. He was a nihilist, is what he was. And once the closer his association with the embodiment of death became, the more of the sociopathic tendencies, because people didn't matter to him. People just didn't matter to him. Only what they mattered to her, and because she's death, that's what people mean to her. So, all right.
Do you guys see Onslaught in the near future? No.
No.
You have to establish Magneto and Xavier before you get Onslaught. So no.
Yeah. Eventually, 10 years down the line, maybe, but I doubt it.
With the potential of the Flash, do you think Gunn and DC should have waited until it came out to announce anything, or are they playing their cards early without a build from it?
I think Warner Brothers Discovery should have waited until they hired him to see how this came out, because you put yourself in a position now, as I've said many times before, if this, and despite the test screening for Aquaman, it's probably going to make a lot of money. If this and Aquaman make decent and really good money, you're now putting your shareholders and everybody in a position of going out on a limb with gun slate, which is money you may make versus money you are making. So that might put a lot of pressure on things to be changed from what his original plans were. Had they had just let Abdi and DeLuca do what they were doing to whatever degree, they would at least know at the end of Flash how much revenue drawing potential those IPs have, and you would have had a better determination whether you can go forward. But everybody wanted to say, well, since DCU hasn't been working 5 years, we had to reboot. That's fanboy logic. All right, fanboy logic doesn't work when in corporate world, and you're seeing what a kerfuffle it could be, because if the Flash makes $1 billion and Aquaman makes 800 or 900 million because he's a MILF magnet, you're telling these people who are trying to pay off billions of dollars of debt and draw dividends and draw profit on their investment to take a chance on some obscure characters that no one's ever heard of for the most part, and yet another version of characters that have already had multiple versions over the last 15, 20, 30 years. So I don't think it's once you hired Gunn was going to do what Gunn was going to do. It was once you should have the CEO and all involved should have taken a better inventory of their situation before the hire was made. That's my opinion. You can go ahead and answer that, Faith.
Jesus, I've only caught a show. Oh, that's not a question. That was Damian Bobo finally catching one of our shows. He says you need to send up a bat signal or something so he remembers when to see the show.
Oh, sorry.
Monkey Jeebus, comic book Thanos is a simp that's in love with the aspect of death. I wouldn't quite call him a psychopath. Will Magneto still be a Holocaust survivor? I hope so, because it's a big part of his character. I don't know. Depends on the time period and whether they want to make him an old man or not.
Yeah, okay. Say if like some of the people have been saying that Giancarlo Esposito. I was just throwing that out there. That's not a guaranteed name or anything else. But if they go with anybody that's not a Jewish character in the comics, so say they go with a black guy, then his experiences would be different.
If they go with a black man, it'll probably be civil rights era.
But another thing that might raise an issue is by the time that they do these movies, are you going to be using someone from the World War II? It's kind of like Nick Fury. The current Nick Fury is not from World War II, whereas the original one was. It all depends on where they want to start. So I don't know, man. That's a good question. That they could have him. Plus, Magneto was de-aged in the comics too, to a baby, and then aged back up younger. So, but they'd have to explain all that. So
there was also a younger clone of him called Joseph, if you remember.
Yeah, I remember Joseph. Yeah. So but that's a lot more explaining than I think they're actually going to want to do. So I don't know. That's a good question.
Can you explain to me why people report that there's test screenings for movies like The Flash or Aquaman haven't even been out? There's bad reviews out of those screenings and usually BS. Never take the opinion of somebody who's seen a test screening of a movie. Test screenings are often not finished. And this is just from my own personal experience. Test screenings are often not finished. The CGI is often not finished. Never actually take the opinion of, in my opinion, never take the opinion of somebody else on a movie. Always go and make your own decision on what you think of the movie. But if you're going to take somebody's opinion, take somebody's opinion who's actually seen the released movie, not some test screening.
Yeah. And also remember, test screenings have a purpose. They're not always showing you the entire movie. They're showing you parts of the movie. They're showing you it's unfinished work. And then a lot of the times, let's say for the sake of arguments, the version of the test screening that is right, everything that you're saying is right about it. It's this or that. That's not going to be the finished part of the movie. The whole purpose of the test screening is to gauge all of that. So you'll never see the general audience like us will never see anything that's connected to that test screening, because if it's that bad, they'll make changes. So test screenings are why you put that news out there. The whole point is to correct things before it gets put out to the public. So I don't know why people, usually you're not supposed to. When you do a test screening, when you're invited to a test screening, you sign something, you agree, because if you leak it, they generally never, from what I heard, they never ask you back again. So
yeah, that's usually how that works. There's a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, because damn. I mean,
and Stella could actually come in and explain that if she would like. She knows more about that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've also been a participant in movies that aren't finished yet. You get little cards that say "shots missing" or "place FX here." It's an unfinished movie, and it is very apparent. Sometimes they'll even have a questionnaire for you to fill out after the movie's over, which means they know their movie's kind of screwed. And the whole bit that, The Flash or any other movie for that matter are having test screenings, it isn't a bad thing. The Flash has actually been getting good reception, so for an old regime greenlit project, they might be doing some course correcting, but the studio seems to be happy with it. Zaslav is happy with it.
I would also like to point out that where was I going with this? I would also like to point out that again, until we see the final product.
Yeah, we're just shooting. We're shooting blanks.
Yeah, And again, whatever happened to being pleasantly surprised at something instead of trying to nitpick and criticize and see if I know what I'm talking about when these movies come out? You're full of crap, okay?
It's the internet. You
Yeah,
blame the
well,
internet.
you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but again, what you say has consequences. What you do has consequences. What you say actually means something to someone else. So if you're always BSing, guess what? When everyone realizes you're BSing and whatever comes out of your mouth is a lie, you're going to be left standing and alone in a corner someplace by yourself. Um, but yeah, sometimes like I said, test screenings are a good thing. Sometimes it's, when all you get, from the executives is like, I don't know about this thing. And, the focus groups or, whatever you want to call them, the test screenings, everyone's like, I don't know what you're talking about. What's the point here? I'm confused about this. They're either able to fix it or not. And usually not means it gets shelved. Something like Batgirl, um, stuff like that. And
But
just to
they're not going to shelve Aquaman, guys. So and Aquaman. When you see Aquaman, like I'm going to say this over and over again, it could be Aquaman talking to a turtle for 2 hours and 5 minutes, and as long as Jason Momoa takes his shirt off for a good quarter of that, it ain't going to matter, because the original Aquaman wasn't The Godfather. It was fun and goopy, but it wasn't great. It made $1 billion. I keep telling people why. Nobody wants to believe me. MILF magnet is a very powerful thing. That look of Jason Momoa is what brings a good portion of that audience too. It's not all of the audience, but it's a significant enough to where, like I said, you got a lot of women out there whose imaginary husband is Jason Momoa.
Yeah,
Jason
and
Momoa's milkshake breaks all the girls to the yard. Okay.
There you go.
hey, I saw Jason Momoa in Baywatch Hawaii, okay? When he had no tattoos and he was about 18 years old.
And those MILFs were watching then too. And now
Yeah.
they've been able to follow this guy through Game of Thrones, through Ronan
Mhm.
Dex's. They're watching stuff. Like I said,
Pardon me, yeah.
you're just not like they're acting like the original Aquaman was this great Lawrence of Arabia achievement. No, it wasn't. It was quite silly actually, but it was
Yeah.
fun. And it's
And
all the fun has to be is fun, so they'll be fine.
and another reiteration of like, okay, they got rid of Batgirl because it was horrible and took it as a tax write-off. Guess what? Even if Aquaman fails and it does make it to the silver screen, it's still a tax write-off.
And I think they're going to be just fine. I think
Oh
that
yeah, I don't think they're going to have a problem with it at all.
especially
And
if the Flash does well. If the Flash does well, and off the heels of the Flash, it's going to have a carryover effect that DC has not had in 5 years. And that's where the problem is going to, not necessarily a problem, but the decision-making process is going to get really weird for all involved. We have our slate, we have our way that we want to do things, but we just made a boatload of money off of these 2 movies. Now, the people who are not fans and are not fanboys are sitting back there counting that money, and they're going to be like, wow, we like this. We need this. But your thing, your Superman is not, to be honest with you, I'm not going to knock what it's going to be. It could be a great movie, but it's not going to make the type of money that a lot of these guys will be expecting. And if you go from $1 billion Flash movie to a $500 to $600 million Superman movie, you're gonna it might put them in a position to be second guessing. I'm not saying that they will, but what have I always said about math? It's undefeated. It's undefeated. Math doesn't lose. All right, it doesn't lose to fanboys. It doesn't lose to and the people who know better, who fight math, they end up losing. That's why we're in a different DC regime. Go ahead and pull that back up again, Stella. How do you think the Secret Wars will be, and how many old actors do you think will be back? I think Secret Wars is going to be an absolute clusterfuck that I am not looking forward to, but I will endure if it's any good.
That's why it's going to be 2 different movies.
I think they're both going to be clusterfucks. Right now, this to me, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a big I call it the Marvel clutterverse, and because there's just too much going on. And the problem when you have all this going on, and all these different realities, and all these different stories and angles, is you have a lot of good stuff in there, but none of it gets enough time.
Well, I think personally that Secret Wars is going to fix all of that. I think we're going to get like almost a crisis. I hate to say crisis on Infinite Earths, but I think we're going to get almost a crisis on Infinite Earths thing happening with that.
That's going to piss people off. I actually think that Secret Wars is going to be that point where people are like, screw this. Because I think in order to do Secret Wars and what I think they're trying to do, this is going to become far more complicated than the general fan. They're already starting to tune out. They're already starting to tune out in ways I did not think Ant-Man would just draw 374 million. I mean, I didn't think it was going to draw bonkers, but I didn't think it would put them in a position to lose money on a movie at this stage of the MCU. And it's a cumulative effect. Thor, Love and Thunder, Thor, Ragnarok, Hawkeye. There's been so many things that are put out, and much of it hasn't been that good. All right, it's so now it's a cumulative. Even though those movies are like Black Panther, Wakanda Forever made Thor made 800 million, Doctor Strange. Yeah, but what's ended up happening is as they move forward down this line, people are starting to remember the mediocrity of those movies, and they're like, I don't know. By the time you get to Secret Wars is by design going to be a clusterfuck. And is the patience going to be there for this? It's not there now for the stuff that they're doing now. You know what I mean?
I say that Secret Wars is going to do the same thing that it did in the comics, both Secret Wars, both versions of Secret Wars.
Go.
I think you're going to keep some people and you're going to turn off some people. I mean, I don't think that the MCU is going to totally go away. I don't think everybody's going to give up on the MCU, but I also don't think that... I think you're kind of right. I think it's going to piss some people off, and rightly so. You're going to have certain characters come back, but they're going to be played by different people because they're going to pull the whole, well, they came from the multiverse, Yeah.
And that's what makes the death in Marvel absolutely useless. Killing somebody in Marvel is like a video game. It's a video game. It's just what we got another life, bring them back. And I know that's the way they're going to handle the Black Panther, which I think is stupid. All right, instead of just recasting him and going on, you're going to bring me another T'Challa from another universe, blend that universe together, and wow, whammo, there we have it. Instead of just writing it right the first time, but hey, that's fine. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where the patience level is after these, by the time we get to Secret War. Because Kang Dynasty, which I am looking forward to, you're going to have people's brains scrambled trying to understand this shit. I know for a fact when I take people to that movie, they're all going to be turning and looking at me, and I'm going to spend another half hour to 40 minutes outside of the theater saying, okay, well, if you guys would have just watched my YouTube show, but I already covered this, but since you don't, here we go. So we start with this guy, and it's going to be mind-blowing because you want people around you to enjoy it, but Kang, you literally have to have a comic book college degree sometimes, and the way they're doing this is a little bit different. They're doing it with the modern Kang, where every time he did something, he had a divergent reality. Whereas originally, remember, that wasn't the case. It was the same guy, linear. So now it's just really, but hey, Secret Wars, I think, is just going to hurt my head, and I maybe I'll enjoy it, but it's just looking like more tossed salad, man. Next question.
I who prefer clusterfucks in movies, especially comic book movies, think it's going to be amazing. But that's just me. What comic book character would you have face off against the Predator? For me, the Predator versus Kraven the Hunter.
Kraven will last 5 minutes.
Kraven would die quickly.
Yeah. And not because he's not a skilled competitor. His ego, he wouldn't believe in the threat. He believes his ego puts him above everything, and you wouldn't be able. The way the Predator's always been defeated, even in Prey, no matter what, is they realized what they were up against, and they acted with a desperation that Kraven just, as a character flaw, doesn't have. He's a trophy hunter. He would walk into that situation with the same mentality that the Predator would, except the Predator has a whole bunch of gadgets that are just, will blow him away. For me,
Yeah,
it
the
has to be
Predator
Iron
has a
Man.
whole bunch of
Iron
gadgets
Man's
that,
the
that Craven just doesn't.
or Wolverine. Wolverine could take on the Predator because he wouldn't need to see him.
Nope.
He would be able to
Just need
smell
to
a Predator
smell
no
him.
matter where the Predator was. Yeah, that'd be it.
Just need to smell
Once again,
him.
we answered this sort of earlier. I don't know how solid all this is. Maybe they talked. I don't know what became of the conversation. I just don't. Once again, I'm not rooting against Constantine being made. I just don't see it making any sense with what he's going to be doing. That's why I hear him saying, "I'm tying this Constantine to this version of Swamp Thing that I'm using." Then maybe, but he seems like he would go with his own Constantine because Constantine's a big part of that universe. Could be wrong. I don't think this movie's ever happening. Question: There's a rumor that Secret World Beyonder will be a King. Oh yeah, I've heard this.
Yeah.
Secure Secret Wars that the Beyonder will be a King variant. How do you feel about that? That's stupid. That is stupid. All right,
That
the
would be
Beyonder was
retarded.
already a stupid character to begin with. All right, the Beyonder barely works on paper. No, don't do that. Kang is an interesting character that's already got the parts built in for you for him to be the most intriguing comic book villain on a cosmic level in a long, long time. Please don't do this, Marvel.
In fact, I would suffice to say that if we're going to use Kang as the cause of the multiversal war, the multiverse saga, then they don't even need to use the Beyonder at all.
Exactly. You can have the Secret Wars in name alone. It doesn't have to have the Beyonder. It's going to be like Q coming in. No. The Beyonder's a horrible character, by the way.
The Beyonder is like Marvel's version of Trelane from the old Star Trek show. He's a pouting child.
Yeah, I just don't, and it's he's so omnipotent. It's just I hated him in the comics. I don't think it would translate well, and you don't need him. The modern day Secret Wars, you don't need the Beyonder for that. The version that they told, in 2015, you don't need the Beyonder for that. Kang does everything that you need for you for that version of it. So, I feel awful about that. H bars. I hope that hasn't happened. Next one.
Next.
William, how can I send you my email so that you can send me my CPO? How can I send you my email so you can send me my CPO's corner goodness, especially some Creed 3. I didn't get any Creed 3. And Cocaine Bear stuff. Cocaine Bear stuff is gone. I didn't get very much achievements to that. I will pay you for the postage. By the way, comics and toys are okay too. But listen here, this ain't Amazon, fool. You can go ahead and message me. Find me on Twitter or any of my social media. contact@thescifecenter.com. And if I'm feeling good one day, I may just send you something. I might just send you an empty box just as a gag, a poster box with some styrofoam in it. You open it up, there ain't shit in there. But the next big thing that we'll probably be getting, I don't even know because it was supposed to be Shazam. I don't know how much stuff. I mean, if they hook us up for Shazam, but the next big thing that they'll probably hook us up with so much stuff that I will have to send it out, like with Black Adam and all that, would be the Flash, because its budget is huge. But like I said, it's not just as paying the postage. It's we changed our address, and there was a lot of screwing up that went with the post office. I had stuff that's been sent out. I have stuff sitting over here that I have to.
You've got stuff that's still for me and Stella.
Yeah, I have. I have Stella. Damn it, Stella.
I haven't gotten it yet.
I got your Yoda. It's here. I have to unbox it because they said it wasn't put in the right box, even though they took it. It took me a long time to get it back, but I have your Yoda.
Ow.
Yeah, it's they wrote all over the box. It's all fucked up. So I opened it up, took it out, repackaged it. Jackie, my sister, is going to send that out.
I wish I lived closer to you because, like I said, I used to do shipping and receiving. I could knock all that out for you in an afternoon.
Yeah, and we're going to need somebody coming up soon because we're going to get, like I said, the majority of our inventory is going to be online pretty soon.
Yeah.
So that we can.
That's it. That's it. We're relocating to Vegas, Stella.
Yeah, we'll just move to Vegas.
Yeah. And another thing is like I sometimes I lose sales. I don't want to lose sales on items that people want because 70% of my business is tourists. So I
Yeah.
want to be able to box it up, bam, and get it to them.
Yeah, just
But
send
right
it
now,
to home so they don't have to carry it. Yeah.
yeah, so I just send it to whatever part in the world. So I have to have the apparatus set up. The address change hurt me, and then the whole postage thing. My sister's going to handle that though. She's going to be our postage person. The weights, the scales, she's got all that shit. She's just going to take care of all this for me because the address change didn't help either. Because like I said, when you put it in the post office and they type in the return
Yeah.
address, I'm no longer 900 Karen Avenue now. I am 900 Liberace Avenue. And trust me when I tell you that has fucked my life up. No disrespect to Liberace, but I did not need you fucking up my directions. It's fucked up my MapQuest. It's fucked up Apple. It's fucked up everything. Certain things that require secured things will
Yes.
not be sent if they can't verify your address. And since my address
Exactly,
no longer
yeah.
exists, my shit's sitting at the post office.
I was
And
wondering what was going on.
yeah, they didn't send it because of the error code that comes up in the post office. So they held it, and they finally sent me a certified letter saying, "Hey, we got your stuff." And I'm like, "Okay." I go down there. There's like posters and shirts and shit that I thought was already gone. All right, next question. Next question. The whole situation makes my head hurt.
Are comic book fans, in terms of criticizing the movies, some of the worst gatekeepers because they complain that characters are not portrayed like they want to?
Go ahead. I'll go back.
Look, as a comic book fan myself, I try not to be that kind of guy that goes, well, this is not like it is in the comics, because I understand the word adaptation. But that being said, yes, comic book readers can be some of the worst gatekeepers when it comes to comic book movies.
Now, good news is that the majority of the people who see these comic book movies will never pick up a comic book. We're the gatekeepers. It's unlike Star Trek and Star Wars where they're embedded. The source
Like
material
tits.
people do not. Yeah, they don't make up the majority of people, and a good percentage of us, even guys like me who've been collecting forever, we understand that you cannot do everything. We understand the adaptation point. There are some extremists out there, but they're not enough to move the needle. You hear them say, well, that guy doesn't look like this. How come he couldn't do that? And that most people don't mind because they'd rather see they're so happy that these characters are on the screen. You do have some people that are like, yeah, that's not in the comic, but like I said, the comic is told in a long form of story that can take years and years and years. In the movie, you have to compact and get rid of that stuff. So most of us, speaking from the collector, most of us understand. Most of my readers, they understand. So it's nowhere near the Star Trek and the Star Wars the people that are gatekeepers. So we're all good there. Next one.
One for me.
No.
As someone who's worked in the business, and what are your general thoughts for the last few years of WB/DC's craziness, especially with the Flash coming up?
Why did you guys have to set her off? No, that's man.
No, I'll make it concise.
I'll be right back. Go ahead and take that one.
Okay. From working where I was in legal and in several different departments and 2 different studios, personally, as Stella Baxter, I think they handled it poorly. Remember, the old regime, for lack of better terms, were greedy, but very arrogant in their ways, and they upheld practices that are not good. And they were going to get caught, and they did get caught. But they didn't remedy the situation properly. And the Flash, parts of it are good. And they say it looks like a good movie. And from what the trailer was, I actually want to go see it in a movie theater. So in June, I will haul my sick, body to whatever movie theaters and probably see Ezra Miller's The Flash in a movie theater. At least Zaslav is giving him a chance and, giving a chance for this film to do what it needs to do. And again, I'm not going to make any big predictions. I just want to go someplace and enjoy something and forget my life for 2 hours, which, again, I will not criticize and complain. Um, and even if it is a horrific movie, you know, I'll just say it's not bad. I'm not going to like spend 5,000 years trying to convince the entire world not to see this movie, you know? But that's about it. Is that okay,
Wow,
William?
I was ducking under the table. All right, next one.
Why is it okay for fans to have a DC multiverse with Snyder, but it's too much for Marvel fans to have a multiverse that they are already familiar with? Um, it's not. Again, gatekeeping. I mean, it sauce for the goose. Okay, it works in my opinion.
I so the difference for me is DC. The multiverse has been a way of storytelling for as long as comic books has been around. For Marvel, it's a plot device, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's just done differently. It's not the same. When you say multiverse in DC, you're talking about something that is totally different than what it is. It is for multiverse in Marvel is totally different than multiverse in DC because with DC, because of their longevity of these characters, that multiverse became a necessity. Instead of just getting rid of characters, they just told you them, oh, this guy, the reason why the guy who was around in 1938 and is really old now is not the same guy. You're the young guy that you've always seen is because he's from Earth 1, Earth 2, and they've been doing that for 70 some odd years. Marvel, it becomes a plot device to solve something. Alternate realities pretty much have existed in DC Comics for the entirety of its existence. When it comes to Marvel, it is used as a way around things, and sometimes very creatively. I'm not saying that's wrong, but to bring about things that they don't want to mess with their prime universe. It is a tool in Marvel, whereas DC it is a way of life. It is part of DC as the D and the C is. So it's just two different animals together. No wrong answer there, but and fans. The problem what you get is fans perceive them more closer than they are. Fans expect comic book things to be exactly like the last thing that they saw, instead of understanding the significant differences between DC and Marvel. I think you ruin your enjoyment when you try to judge Marvel through a DC lens and then you try to judge DC through a Marvel lens. That's the last 10 years of fandom has ruined it that way because you had people who watched what Marvel was doing and came over and saw what DC was doing and were judging an 80-year-old IP by the standards of Marvel Comics, who didn't even exist when DC created the superhero team, created alternate realities, created all kinds of things. That Marvel was 2 decades away, or a decade, actually no, 2 decades away from even being in existence. While in the 30s and early 40s, DC was creating these things. But the fanboy of the modern era cannot appreciate that. They just
And again,
appreciate
this is why I don't call myself a fanboy. Okay, because I do know the history of Marvel Comics, which originally started out as Timely Comics. I do know the history of DC Comics. I do know where all of
You're a
this stuff
comic
is
collector.
going.
You're not a fanboy. You're a comic book collector. So you and me are on the same wavelength. The people who are that he's talking about are people who do not understand the genesis of these heroes in the comic books. The only thing that they've seen is from the movies. So that fanboy logic comes from only knowing these movies and only knowing that this movie got released in the proximity of this Marvel movie and this DC movie. So I'm going to judge this DC movie by what the Marvel movie's doing. See,
Yeah,
you and I won't do that.
no,
The certain segment, not all of them, the certain segment of fanboys did that, and that's what really. And unfortunately, they did it to the extent where the bad management at Warner Brothers listened to that crew and set expectations for that crew. So it's more of them. It's not as bad as it was from 2013 to 2017. It's still out there, but it's not as bad as it was before. But that's the thing: is guys like you will recognize the difference, and it won't mean shit to us. But the people who only watch this through the lens of TV and movies, they don't have that appreciation because it's all been thrown at them at once.
yeah. But it also comes off like we know, you and I know that from the history of Marvel and DC that things are mutable, things change, and
Yeah.
it flows and ebbs. That's why Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, Copper Age, whatever. We know the differences in each age. And we know, that at one time Superman was a god, but they've limited his power now in the modern age, and
Made him a pussy.
Superman once at one time could shatter planets flying into them. I mean, he could do anything, and now not so much. But like, I
Yeah,
don't
he couldn't
know.
even go out to space at post crisis. He was going out to space with a breather, with a air or oxygen mask. I'm like, what? The?
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. All right, who do you think will win this fight? You guys love these fights. The two elite assassins in the comic books, Talia al Ghul or Black. Ooh, that's a
That
stamp.
one's simple, Talia. Because not only is she trained in like modern fighting techniques, she's also trained in the mysticism of the League of Assassins, and that's where she's going to have an edge over Natasha.
And if it's a DC writer, yeah, but if it's a Marvel writer, no.
But I'm
Black Widow will
also
find.
going to answer this the same way that Stan Lee always answered these kind of questions. Depends on who's writing the book.
Yep, exactly.
If the story called for the Hulk to lose, then the Hulk lost. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Or go with a stalemate with Wolverine because he's an up and coming character. Next one.
You think is
Who do
going to
you
become
think?
friends, Doctor Manhattan or Reverse Flash or Kang? Hmm? Well, considering Kang is not anywhere near those other two, um, Doctor
And
Manhattan wouldn't care about Reverse Flash. So I don't know what you're asking here, Beltre.
yeah, sorry, man.
That's kind of a confusing question you got there, brother. Fade for Steel in the DCU. He'd have to be a big fella. Um, I don't know, William. You want to field this one?
I don't want a Steel movie to be made. I didn't want the one that was made. So
Yeah,
nobody.
but what if they did like a Reign of the Superman movie where he's just a part of it? No, not like his own movie, but it's just a part of
I
it.
would have plenty of time because I wouldn't be going to see any of those movies.
Fair enough.
I,
What about
I hate
Martian
that.
Manhunter? What about Martian Manhunter?
Harry Lennox.
That would work. I have seen a couple of different people play Martian Manhunter lately. There was the guy who played him in the CW shows,
Go ahead.
and there was the guy who played him, who played the General and John Jones in the Zack Snyder movies.
Harry Lennox. That's right.
Harry Lennox, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Harry Lennox.
It's midnight, by the way, Pacific Standard Time.
okay.
All right, we got a few more minutes to wrap it up. All right, next one. Question after the multiverse saga and the King, who can Marvel hype up? Who knows? Well, Apocalypse, because I think there will be shifted to the X-Men, and I think the Age of Apocalypse. Because remember, Age of Apocalypse isn't just a mutant X-Men storyline; it technically affected the entire world that they were in.
Mm-hmm.
So Age of Apocalypse. I think Apocalypse will become the next baddie.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite match of last year? The Briscoes. Oh, damn, dude.
Okay, yeah, this is a you question, William, because I
Oh,
don't know who he's talking about.
whoa. What's your guys' favorite match of last year? The Briscoes versus FTR or Ring of Honor? On Ring of Honor, this is my last year's shit. Aussie Open versus FPR in New Japan 44, 44th Street. As far as tag team matches goes, um, the Death Triangle versus the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega is up there. Death Before Beyond was a good match. That was a good match for a gimmick match, and it means a lot more now. But I'm going to go with those two. Next.
If Gunn feels early, William, not that I want him to, do you think that they would bring Snyder in to fix and salvage the whole thing? No.
No.
I'm going to answer that question for you. No. Because he is busy
Newer
with his
team
own
doesn't have any
projects.
connection. So,
Yeah,
Well,
even,
he's
even I would say no because Zach is doing his own stuff, and everyone's asking for Zactivation. Zach hasn't said squat about any of this, and that's what all of you should like adhere to. Even some Snyder Bros are making up stuff that Zach never said, never hinted at. So go to
but
the primary
now, on
source,
the flip
people.
side of that,
Huh?
if you're somebody who's just sitting in the boardroom
Yeah.
that's not connected to any fan thing, and you see the Flash, if say for instance gun stuff doesn't do well, I'm not rooting for it either, like that. But in the last billions that you made were from characters that for the most part were derived from Zack Snyder. As a bean counter and a non-fan, you may reach out to him. You may reach out to them because once again, what I did say about math. All right, the smart people are going to go are going to bet on the horse at math, and the last ones, whatever the hell that was, the last big money that they would have made if gun stuff were to not do well would have been the Flash and Aquaman. All right, and those are Zack Snyder's characters, so they may trace that. Them, I'm not saying that it's going to fail or that he wouldn't even want to do it again. But if you never say never, you never back yourself into a corner. If somebody came to, if I had been wronged by a company and all the people that wronged me had been chased away, and somebody comes to me and says, "This is yours," this is the keys. We're giving you the keys, and we're turning and walking away. That would have been something that he had never had in DC. And if they tell him, it's all about negotiation. We're going to let you do whatever you want. Stone Quarry, you use Stone Quarry to do it. It's just like any other project you're doing with Stone Quarry. You put people in charge. You delegate it. You got your projects. Guess what? That's what your production company's for. Who knows what the odds are? The mechanics are there for it to happen, but we're also talking about it's going to take time for any failure to happen because these movies aren't even coming out for 2.5 years. So who knows where we would be beyond that point. But a non-fanboy, a non-move on people, I have really not very much love of, and a non-Snyder bro, you take them out of the equation and you just put money on the table, and they look at the Flash has made $1 billion, whatever, and Milf Magnets pulled in his $1 billion, and those are a large part, if not entirely, Snyder characters. You follow the money. So it could happen. Never say never. We've learned, if anything, we've learned since 2017. Never say never, and never let anybody else tell you never. Including myself. So, all right, next one.
The Black Widow has some super soldier serum in her, similar to Nick Fury and Cap in the comics. She has a lesser, inferior version of it that the Russians made. She'll have long life. Her lifespan will be extended, and she'll be a little faster and a little stronger, but she's nowhere near the super soldier serum.
Yeah, he got the full dose of it. And remember the Ultimates, how the Ultimates and all that was created because they couldn't replicate it again. It was so it was so tough. Next one. We got about 4 minutes.
Are you guys surprised that they did never make a sequel to the movie Chappie? No, it was kind of a standalone movie. Who should play Galactus?
CGI character.
A CGI character with an actor that has a deep and booming voice.
It doesn't even have to be deep because they can mechanically alter that.
Yeah, I mean, insert actor.
It can literally be me.
Insert voice actor here. I would say personally because I know the guy Ray Porter.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Be hilarious playing another Jack Kirby character.
Do you think the Flash is embracing Snyder's work, or are you looking at it from a reset, anti-Snyder fixing perspective? No, I'm looking at it from the perspective of I want to give James Gunn the time of day. I am not the huge Snyderverse guy that everybody else in our group is. So I'm just saying, what I want DC to do for me as a customer is something that they haven't been able to do in 30 years. I want them to bring me a cohesive, connected universe of stories. When they can do that in anything other than animation, that's what I want. William?
And most of their early animation blows. Um, yes, I do think the Flash is embracing Snyder's work. You can't avoid it. It's most of the characters in there were either cast by him or are there because of characters that were casted by him. And by looking from it from a reset anti Snyder fiction, no, I don't think this. I don't think there's any reboot button you can do to outrun your past. You either fix it and then move on, or resolve it and then move on, or it's going to chase you. And now, if they don't resolve this, if we don't get some type of ending to it, that puts adverse pressure on his movies because every failure, if there is a failure, or every shortcoming that James Gunn has, he's going to have this ghost in the room. He's going to have this unfinished 800-pound gorilla in the room that's not been resolved. Whereas had they resolved it and used these movies, if they do to resolve it, then you get that out of your rearview mirror. You're always going to have an extremist cult level value to people who want to do it, but they're a very low percentage. But pragmatic people who are not extremists, are they know these movies came out. They know that the majority of the Flash movie has lineage to Zack Snyder's stuff. So if they like the Flash, it's a logical conclusion that they're going to want more of that tone. If that movie makes a billion, then it's not really a Snyder fixing perspective. It's a you got to do a better job at taking stock of what you had before you made a big decision to bring in somebody that could possibly give you something drastically different because it's not fair to anybody. All right, it's not fair to him. You're saying here, run with this and do what you want, but at the same time, you got these movies in the rearview mirror that and nobody's thought of the stockholders. Nobody's thought of the people who are investing in these movies. That money that they're making currently, that's right, that pile of cash that's in front of them is a lot more colorful and strong than this maybe money you're going to make with the Authority or with Paradise Lost or anything. Even though some of those projects I'm interested in, you're asking people to take a giant leap off of very unstable foundations. All right, because you never resolved this, because this was never fixed. I always said wrecked runways lead to crashed planes. So we're trying to get off on this new thing, off of the wreckage of the old thing, thinking that we can just wish away Zack Snyder's movies. You can't. They are there. They are there and they were unresolved. So now your new thing is on a tightrope, a high wire, with a whole lot of people, not wishing that you fail, but are even wondering why you're up there in the first place when you had this thing that gave you the Flash. So it's going to be very interesting. Next one.
And this should be the last question of the night.
All right. Taking away the
We've got one more question under JR server, but we'll take.
Yeah, I'm just saying it now, okay? Please, thank you.
Taking away the Thalia has magic just based on hand-to-hand combat. Who wins in a fight with Talia? I still say Talia.
I think it'd be a tie if you took that away. But all right, last one. And then,
how much longer do you think until Sony announces Andrew is in their Spider-Man villain universe? Really, how much longer can they do what they're doing without Spider-Man? Who knows?
I think after Madam Web, because Madam Web is before Spider-Man's born, so I think you might see him around then. I would love to see Andrew Garfield do it, but he's pushing in his 40s now. He still looks great, but who knows? It all depends on what they, how what the pace is and how these things go. So, all right, guys, that's it. That is it. I have done my geek duty and shepherded you into what was Saturday, March 4th, well into Sunday, March 5th. We've covered all of our topics. We covered another couple of versions of Kang. We'll cover some more next week, and then we'll do a wrap up of that. There's nothing left in the tank for me right now. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for being the best part of this fan community and fan YouTube interaction, and for keeping it tame and keeping things on topic and keeping things focused. And if I have enough energy tomorrow, I will stream tomorrow. I'll do another Midnight Express. But other than that, these next couple of weeks, like I said, I warned last week, as we're doing a lot of live stuff here on site at the center. We get a lot of promotions going on. So look for the schedule not to be as like the Saturdays and stuff, not to be as solid because of most of the majority of it takes place on the weekend. So I will keep you posted as much as possible on where and when I will be. But until then, thank you, Daniel. We will see you guys around the Geekosphere. Say bye,
Night,
Stella.
fellas. Night, guys. Stella, say good night.
Good night.
See you guys later.